Browns 27-12 losers here in their final home preseason game. They have one left in Seattle next Saturday. But the big story today, a couple of big stories. We'll start with Mike Hall. He actually suited up and he played in this football game. Of course, he was arrested on Tuesday and charged with domestic violence. He was injured on Wednesday during practice. Kevin Stefanski indicated on Thursday he might be out a bit, but Mary Kay, we show up, all of a sudden he's in full uniform warming up, and the third play of the game, there's Mike Hall on the football field.
Yes, I will have to say that was quite a surprise after just asking Kevin Stefanski about it on Thursday, and he said, yes, he could potentially be out for a bit, but that bit proved to be about 48 hours because there was Mike Hall back on the field. And as you mentioned, third play of the game, he was in there. And on his third snap of the game, he was hitting Nick Mullins. So he made an immediate impact. I think he only had one assist in the game, but he was out there, lo and behold, and now we will have to see how this whole thing goes as we move forward, because it's still a legal situation. It is still an NFL situation. They're doing their own investigation, and we don't know if Mike Hall is going to be continuing his career.
Yeah, and Ashley, there are repercussions for this, of course, too, because if there is a situation where the NFL were to step in, whatever it could be, that could clear up a spot for a defensive tackle, which is a very crowded room. There's a lot of on-field and off-field implications here for Mike Hall's future, but still, just sort of I use this term a lot for the Browns, a surreal moment seeing him out there playing football tonight.
Yeah, I mean, largely also because when a player has a stinger, we've talked about this, they can oftentimes land themselves in the concussion protocol with that injury, even though it's not a diagnosed concussion. So when the way they were talking the last couple of days, it just seemed like, oh, it's trending towards him not playing. But by our count, Mary Kay and I tried our best. We were double checking with each other. He played about 23 snaps in the first half, according to the notes I took. And yeah, he had that quarterback hit, but I talked to a bunch of the younger defensive linemen today. I think you kind of got a picture for just how much depth I think this room has. I think we've really started to see it throughout camp, just as the defensive line has gone through a serious bout of injuries over the last few weeks.
Now, just so you all know, Mike Hall left the locker room before media was able to get in there, so we were not able to talk to Mike Hall after the game. Now, on the offensive side of the ball at tackle, they are very quickly running out of tackles. James Hudson, who has been playing a lot of left tackle, actually started at right tackle today. Jermaine Afidi started at left tackle, mostly second stringers out there, and Mary Kay, by the end of the game, both of those players were out with injuries.
Yes, as well as Hakeem Adeniji. So 3 tackles were lost in this game, and they basically wiped out their tackle depth. Now, the reason that is so important right now is because their starting left tackle, Jed Wills Jr., is not back yet. He's still recovering from a torn MCL. Same thing with Jack Conklin. He's also recovering from torn ACL, torn MCL, and he's not back yet. So they really are down to the nitty-gritty at left tackle with only 3 weeks to go before Micah Parsons and the Cowboys come to town. So this was the big story tonight, just the attrition at that left tackle position.
Yeah, and as you were referencing there, Mary Kay, it's the big mystery too, because we just don't know if either Jed or Jack are going to be ready. We've seen them out there on the practice field watching, but they obviously are not back at practice yet. And until they are, Ashley, it's kind of who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think who knows what's going to happen could go both ways. We were talking about this before the game. I mean, sometimes in the NFL, you'll have a guy who's not practicing. It looks like he's trending towards not playing in a game, and all of a sudden Sunday gets there and he's out there. So things like that do happen, but it is important to note these were major knee injuries that these guys went through. Jack Conklin has had a couple major knee injuries now over the last couple of years, and it's just hard without that clarity. So I think if any of these 3, James Hudson and the rest of these tackles, have to miss any amount of time, it's an interesting position for this line, just because they are running out of bodies at these tackle spots.
Now, we did see Jack Conklin walk out of the locker room. I'll say this, great dresser. He looked good, so good for Jack. The quarterback position, starter is set, backup is set. That third quarterback job still up for grabs, Mary Kay, and that battle took center stage with Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting this game and Tyler Huntley finishing.
Right, and I don't think either quarterback really distinguished himself in this game necessarily. Both of them had interceptions. Huntley had 2 interceptions. Dorian had 1. He threw a ball behind Jamari Thrash. It got deflected, picked off. So I don't think either one of them really seized the moment per se, but I still think that for some reason, I could be wrong about this in the end, but I still think the Browns really have an affinity for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and I still feel like there's going to be a way for them to try to keep him around as their number 3.
And Ashley, that would make sense. We know he's a former draft pick. We know they kind of, when they drafted him, they viewed him as a potential long-term backup of the future for Deshaun Watson. So it wouldn't be surprising if that weighs heavily in their decision.
I do think that long-term aspect is key. It's kind of what the Browns have been preaching with DTR ever since they drafted him. And of course, when he got here last year, the initial talking point was kind of, well, we don't need him to be our backup immediately. And then obviously some things happened. They traded Josh Dobbs, and there he was. However, I think that is an important piece to all of this, knowing how Andrew Berry treats his draft picks and knowing how they always viewed long-term development as a key when they went and drafted Dorian, and his relationship with Deshaun Watson that goes back pre either of them being here, or at least pre-Dorian being here. I think that's another big key to it as well.
Okay, Browns wrap up the preseason in Seattle next week. The next time you see a video with us standing in front of this football field, it will be after they've played the Dallas Cowboys week 1. It is coming up very quickly. Full coverage of tonight's preseason game and beyond at cleveland.com/Browns.